Welcome to Pasadena Monthly. I'm your host, Justin Chapman. After taking a look at what's been going on in Pasadena this past month, we'll speak with our guest, Samuel Hale, the board chair of the Mount Wilson Observatory and president and CEO of the Mount Wilson Institute. Let's turn first to our lightning round of news updates. 1. Mike Futrell will not be Pasadena's city manager after all. After the city made an offer to him for the position in April, the vetting process continued, and then a rare Saturday closed session council meeting was scheduled before being canceled hours before taking place. And shortly after that, the city announced that he withdrew from consideration for the position. Interim city manager Matt Hawksworth will continue to serve in the role until a replacement is found. Council is currently deliberating about next steps. 2. PUSD Superintendent Dr. Elizabeth Blanco said the district will conduct a full environmental impact report on the Elliott School Tower, which was damaged in the Eaton fire. Earlier in the month, district officials informed the Altadena Town Council that structural assessments raised significant concerns about the tower's stability and safety. Altadena residents rallied to save the tower and called it an important landmark for the community, with a petition gathering thousands of signatures. The tower is not a historic resource, but PUSD said it will treat it as a historic resource before deciding whether to demolish the structure. The PUSD School Board also voted to completely rebuild San Rafael Elementary, the last remaining public school in West Pasadena. The $128 million project will be funded by Measure O and Measure R, and represents a long-term investment in the school. Work is expected to begin in summer 2027, with students relocated to Allendale Elementary for about 2 years. Also, PUSD's School Consolidation Advisory Committee concluded its work and did not offer recommendations that schools be closed or consolidated, which will now be decided by the school board, which is scheduled for June 25th. And the board also approved another round of layoffs impacting 281 positions. 3. The mayor of Arcadia, Eileen Wang, resigned this month after the U.S. Department of Justice indicted her for acting as an agent of the Chinese government. As part of a plea agreement, she will plead guilty to the felony charge, which has a statutory maximum sentence of 10 years in federal prison. From 2020 to 2022, she operated a website called U.S. News Center, which presented itself as a legitimate news source for local Chinese Americans, but in fact was a conduit for content that came from Chinese government officials via an encrypted messenger app called WeChat, including an article that denied the existence of forced labor camps in the Xinjiang region that U.S. officials allege detain Uyghurs and other minority and religious groups. 4. Earlier this month, Council adopted its 2027 to 2031 Capital Improvement Program budget, which lays out planned infrastructure projects for the city. They also opened an ongoing multi-week public hearing on the city manager's fiscal year 2027 recommended operating budget, which will remain open at every council meeting through June 15th. The proposed budget totals about $1.41 billion, down slightly from the current fiscal year. And the general fund would increase nearly $20 million to $383.4 million. It would reduce funding for the public health department by about $2.5 million due to expiring grants, which could impact programs such as PORT, which provides outreach to individuals experiencing homelessness. The budget proposal otherwise maintains existing service levels with limited new spending. The budget is balanced using roughly $1.6 million in one-time sales tax revenue and $3.8 million in reserves. Revenues are projected to grow modestly, while costs are rising more quickly. This comes at a time of significant economic headwinds across the country and around the world. Interim City Manager Hawksworth wrote to Council that, quote, balancing the budget has become increasingly challenging as the city continues to operate in an environment marked by economic uncertainty, persistent inflationary pressures, and concerns about a potential economic slowdown. 5. Council voted to amend the city's ethical investment policy, which adds new language that reads, quote, the city treasurer or any other authorized individual or company managing investments of the city surplus fund shall not invest in companies that engage in the production of fossil fuel, weapons manufacturing, tobacco, or private prisons, end quote. Finance Department staff confirmed that the city does not hold any investments in those prohibited categories. 6. Councilmember Madison held a town hall last week focused on the 710 project. Senior staff from the city's planning and transportation departments and from the consultant, Point C, delivered presentations on next steps for the project. If you missed it, you can watch the video of the full meeting on Pasadena Media's YouTube page. Also, the planning department is proposing a $27.19 million operating budget that would add one new senior project manager position to oversee the Reconnecting Pasadena 710 project. 7. LA Superior Court Judge Joseph Lipner said he is inclined to deny a motion by UCLA to dismiss the lawsuit filed by the Rose Bowl in the city of Pasadena regarding UCLA's attempt to move its football team to SoFi Stadium before its lease expires in 2044. He said the motion is, quote, untimely and unsupported by sufficient cause. 8. The city of Pasadena is launching a broader community conversation regarding the long-term challenges facing Pasadena's fire protection system, streets, sidewalks, and aging infrastructure systems. Residents are encouraged to participate in a new community survey, which you can find on the city's website, and attend an upcoming public meeting focused on future infrastructure and public safety priorities. As Pasadena continues to grow and evolve, aging infrastructure, rising construction costs, increasing service demands, and long-term maintenance needs are placing growing pressure on the city's ability to maintain the high level of services residents expect. 9. An investigation commissioned by the LA County Fire Department into the delays in evacuation notices to West Altadena during the Eaton fire did not identify misconduct or intentional delays by incident commanders. And 10. California, Arizona, and Nevada submitted a short-term proposal to the U.S. Department of the Interior to reduce water use from the Colorado River and outline how states would manage existing supplies through 2028. Pasadena receives much of its water as a member agency of the Metropolitan Water District from the Colorado River, and 7 southwestern states are currently in a dispute about who should get how much water and when. The proposal includes at least 3.2 million acre-feet of water savings and the reduction of water use by 1.25 million acre-feet per year in 2027 and 28, and is an interim plan while the 7 states and federal officials continue negotiations on longer-term Colorado River water use. Let's welcome our guest, Samuel Hale, CEO and Chair of the Board of Trustees of the Mount Wilson Observatory and Mount Wilson Institute. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Great to be here to share the story of Mount Wilson Observatory with Pasadena.
Absolutely. Sam is the grandson of George Ellery Hale, the legendary astrophysicist who founded the observatory in 1904, which revolutionized humankind's understanding of the cosmos, as well as he helped transform Caltech into a world-class science and engineering university. He worked with Henry Huntington to create the Huntington Library and contributed to the creation of Pasadena's Civic Center. Sam was born in Pasadena in 1942 and worked in investment management. He was also a board member and later president of the Pasadena Humane Society. So Sam, the Mount Wilson Observatory is still in the family after all these years, in a sense, right?
Absolutely. There's another Hale after me, my son Gavin, and he's involved and will carry on when I'm gone.
So tell us a little bit more about the observatory's history and about your grandfather who founded it.
Well, my grandfather, George Ellery Hale, was born in 1868, 3 years after the Civil War ended, and from a very young age had an insatiable curiosity for science and became interested in astronomy and went to MIT, graduated, but he graduated in physics, not astronomy, because there weren't courses of study per se in astronomy then, or majors in astronomy. And he founded his first big telescope about 90 miles outside of Chicago because he had some local funding to get it done, and it had to be done in that area. But he knew all along that was not the best place to see the cosmos from, given the winters there and the cloud cover most of the time. So his eyes were set to the west, and Mount Wilson, California, actually has some of the best what's called seeing in North America, meaning that it's above the mountain, the air is very still because the cold air that comes off of the Pacific comes right up over the top of the mountain, and with still air, you can see the cosmos much clearer than when the air is volatile. So that's why he came to Mount Wilson. Then he came in 1904, and he was funded by Andrew Carnegie, the man who at the turn of the century sold his steel company and had a huge bag of cash and decided he was going to give it away. And one of the things he was going to do was give money to a group of what he called extraordinary and eminent scientists, and my grandfather was one of them. So he came west in 1904, and with the first solar telescope that he brought from Chicago, and then in 1908 he built the world's largest reflecting telescope using a mirror rather than a lens, and followed by the 100-inch telescope in 1917, which was then again the largest in the world. And it was with these telescopes that some of the most profound discoveries in the history of astronomy and science happened. And one being the discovery that the Milky Way, which consensus wisdom at that point believed was the only galaxy that there was, and that Earth was in the middle of it. Well, it found out with the telescopes there, the Earth isn't in the middle of the Milky Way. It's sort of off in a distant suburb of the Milky Way, and also that the Milky Way was gargantuanly bigger than anybody had ever realized. And then probably the other most famous discoveries were by Edwin Hubble. First, that there was more to the universe than the Milky Way, and discovered basically what he discovered on Mount Wilson was the universe, the incredible universe. And then followed on 5 years later, he discovered that that universe was expanding. So those discoveries on Mount Wilson, as I said, were probably the most pivotal in the history of astronomy. And it's on those discoveries that everything today in astronomy and astrophysics is built. And that's why Mount Wilson is such an incredibly important place, not only in the history of science, but of science going forward. And that's why we want to share that history and that legacy of my grandfather with the public.
It's amazing, and so close to Pasadena. What is the role of the observatory today?
Well, our role is to share with the world the incredible discoveries that were made there. Two of the biggest, I've just described to you, and to understand that the 100-inch telescope at Mount Wilson, which is still operating, uh, is one of the two most important telescopes in the history of astronomy, the other being Galileo's. So that kind of puts it in perspective of the impact that telescope and what happened on Mount Wilson is to the history of science. And it's that history of science, it's my grandfather's legacy of what he built on Mount Wilson, and also how he helped modernize astronomy and brought it more into a focus on what's known as astrophysics, because he was a physics not a physician. Physics was his field, and it was through physics he wanted to know how stars were made, what constituted stars. So he was bringing chemistry and physics into the observation of the heavens, and it was the sun which was his really his laboratory, because he said, if we want to study the stars, why not study the one closest to us? And so he made some of the world's most astounding discoveries about the sun, like the sun had a magnetic field, it had poles, just all the breakthrough discoveries of the sun were as a result of his work, even before the stellar telescopes, the 100-inch and the 60-inch were made. So we want to share that with the world, and all the other wonderful things that happened, like, for instance, a physicist by the name of Albert Michelson, a Nobel laureate in 1912. It was on Mount Wilson that he verified the speed of light. You know, an incredibly pivotal, important discovery and verification for science going forward. And we have a seismology station up there that was one of the first outside of Pasadena that is now this year is celebrating its centennial. So there's many different aspects of science up there that were groundbreaking, and it's important for us to share with the world and with the Los Angeles basin this incredible heritage that this community has so close by.
You also have a lot of events up there, some concerts, talks, screenings. Tell us about some of the events coming up.
Well, we have a monthly, what we call a Talks and Telescope evening, where we have a lecture by an astronomer, and these are meant for the public. These are not, oh, you know, mathematical expositions, but they're something that the layman can understand. We have those monthly, followed by we have a dinner there. We have a food truck come up. You can bring a picnic, and afterwards have access to looking through the 60 and the 100-inch telescope. So it's a wonderful evening. We have concerts up there in the dome of the 100-inch telescope monthly, and I'll tell you that the acoustics in the dome of the 100-inch telescope are just incredible. They are just amazing. And we have that, and we have, for the family, we have what we call matinees on the mountain, where we have science fiction films. We've done a reprise of some of the old talkie or pre-talkie science fiction films, and we have an actual organ in our auditorium. We have a 250-seat auditorium. We have an organ that plays along with some of these, as they did in the old movie theaters way back when. And we also have tours on the weekend. You can come up and get a tour of the mountain, and spend some time at our cafe, have a sandwich, a hot dog, a cup of coffee, and relax up there. And then the other thing that we do is we have public group reservation nights, where you can actually rent one of the big telescopes and bring a group up there and spend 3 or 4 hours during the evening watching the stars. And we also have public ticket nights for individuals who want to come up on their own and do the same thing. So we've got all sorts of ways that the public can enjoy, the wonders of the science of Mount Wilson, and also the beauty of the place. Justin, it's just amazing that here above a metropolis of 12 million people or whatever it is, you have this incredible little sanctuary a mile up in the sky right above Pasadena. It looks like a national park up there. I mean, it is so beautiful and quiet and serene, right above the hubbub of Los Angeles. And one of the ironies is that most of the people who live in the basin can see the mountain. They can see Mount Wilson, and most people don't know what's going on there. So that's what we're trying to share with the public.
Right. Yeah, no, I love going up there, especially when it snows. It's so beautiful up there. Yeah, and the mayor often says Pasadena is the center of the universe, and I think Mount Wilson has a lot to do with that reputation. The Eaton fire came dangerously close to Mount Wilson, and that wasn't the first time either. What impact would that have if we were to lose this gem?
What if the Louvre in Paris burned down? I mean, what if the National Gallery in Washington burned down, or the Museum of Modern Art, or any great scientific spot on the planet burned down? It would take away just part of our heritage is humans, and the spirit of human endeavor and persistence and study can do to bring us more into tune with who we are and where we came from. And as we know now through the discoveries on Mount Wilson, we all came from the universe. We came from those exploding stars. And that's a that's a mighty big thing to lose if you don't have a touchstone with that history.
Yeah, absolutely. What is the current relationship between Mount Wilson and Caltech and JPL?
Oh, that I'm glad you asked that question. You'll recall I said at the outset that the building of the Mount Wilson Observatory was funded by Andrew Carnegie and the Carnegie Institution of Science, which he created after selling his company with some of the proceeds from that sale. We have nothing to do with Caltech or JPL. It's the Carnegie Institution of Science that owns the facility on the mountain, and we manage it for them. But so lots of interchange with Caltech, as you said at the outset. My grandfather basically was the creator of what became Caltech, and but there's no connection at all. Caltech didn't found Mount Wilson. It was the Carnegie Institution, which their scientific headquarters are right there in Pasadena, where my grandfather started working on the telescopes.
Yeah, absolutely. And then how can the community support the observatory, and how can people learn more about it?
Well, Mount Wilson EDU is the best place to go to learn about it. And the best way to support it is come to the mountain. The best way to support it, and what we hope that people will do, is bring their children, bring their grandchildren, share with them what man can do and the ingenuity of man. And in these times, these troubled times, going to a place like that, seeing what can be accomplished by collaboration of great geniuses, men and women who work there, is an inspiration for, we like to think, children growing up. And we have a very extensive STEM education program. I think last year we had 600 students come to the mountain and learn about astronomy. So that's the best way to help us, is come and see what this place is really all about. And as I tell people, when you go there and you walk around and you learn what happened and you see those observatories and you go up and look at the telescopes, I mean, the place is magic. You will come away saying, I haven't really ever experienced anything quite as incredible as what happened there. I know that's a big claim.
No, absolutely. It's a special place for sure. And if anyone hasn't been up there, they absolutely should visit. Well, Samuel Hale, thank you so much for coming on the show and speaking with us. It's such important work that they're doing up there, and such an important part of Pasadena's history, humanity's history. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for letting us share our story with Pasadena and Justin and your help. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
Take care. Before we go, here is this month in Pasadena history. It was this month in 1942 when Pasadena residents of Japanese ancestry and 120,000 citizens, non-citizens along the West Coast were forcibly relocated from their communities and interned at camps across the West because of wartime hysteria, anti-Asian racism, and unfounded fears of espionage and sabotage in the wake of Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor. The process actually started a couple months earlier, but really escalated in May. According to a history report commissioned by Pasadena City College, the area north of PCC's campus was the center of Pasadena's Japanese community at the time and was particularly hard hit by internment. Both students and faculty from PCC were interned under this program. Before the permanent camps were finished, people were first sent to temporary assembly centers, which were hastily converted fairgrounds and racetracks, including Santa Anita Racetrack. They were then transferred to 10 remote internment camps through the end of the war. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Pasadena Monthly. Tune in every fourth Friday of the month at 5 p.m. Learn more at pasadenamedia.org and justindouglaschapman.com. We'll see you next time.